we're talking about something called surrealism. So surrealism, you probably heard this term maybe in your past, I don't know. You may have learned of this in Intro to Art or in middle school. But basically what it is it's a form of art that kind of looks dreamlike or strange in some way. Like the elements of the piece all look like real or like normal, but when you put them all together, something's abnormal, something's off. Sometimes it can be very funny. Sometimes it can be really scary or creepy. Sometimes it can just be like interesting to look at, like this one. So this is what we're going to be attempting to do. You're going to be using photographs that you find on the internet. You're going to blend them together to make some sort of cool surrealist image. Okay. So in this case, you see this like girl looking up at the sky and the clouds. Only when she's looking at the clouds, it's not clouds. It's more of like a whale breaching the water kind of thing, right? Okay. So let's keep looking. So some other examples. So let me rewind a little bit and talk to you very briefly about sort of like the history of this. This started by this dude named Salvador Dali. He was a painter. He used to paint these really strange, creepy images like this. He also did like the melting clocks, where everything is sort of like dreamlike and strange. So it's like something you're familiar with, only it's in a weird setting to where it doesn't quite look right. Like I was saying, like a dream of some kind. Let's see who just joined here. Sorry, those of you joining late, I'm trying to get you marked down so I can give you attendance. Okay, so back to what I was saying. Let's see here. Oh, it's all good, Gavin. So here are some examples of some early versions of surrealism. It started as a painting style, right? So here's some, and now I'm going to show you a couple of more modern paintings that are kind of cool, but they'll give you the idea, right? So here you can see a picture of a painting of this cool ship coming into a harbor, only the sails are flowers, and the little landing vessels or petals dripping off the flowers, right? So the kind of a cool story here. It's kind of beautiful and interesting, but totally weird and strange, right? Same idea here. Like this couple looking at the clouds, only the clouds turn into some sort of hot air balloon, right? So it's all very dreamlike, very strange, very interesting. Same idea here with the clamshell and the pearl doubling as the sun. Okay, so these are examples of like where the painting style came from. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using it as a way to blend photographs. So check this out. Here are some famous examples of surrealist photography. So usually there's something a little off, like a little strange, right? So you have a guy standing with the umbrella. You'd expect a storm cloud to be over top of him, but in this case you have a giant boulder, or some people have told me it looks like a potato, which would also be surrealist. That is very strange as well. Here's another famous example. You see this screaming mouth, but when you zoom in closer, you can see it's like instead of a throat and tongue, you get like a cobblestone street. In the back of the mouth is like a tunnel leading to the Taj Mahal, right? So that's like 3 photographs blended together to create that illusion. So here's some examples, an example of something that like perhaps you might want to do, right? So it's all about, first you have to come up with an idea, and then you have to assemble the regular photographs together to make something irregular. So in this case, you have this cool example of this like guy's holding onto the clouds as they're trying to lift him up, and he's anchored into the ground, right? So there's obviously this could never really happen in real life, but it looks like it's realistic based on the fact that it's a photograph. Same thing here. It doesn't have to be complex. It can be very simple. In this case, this is really just 2 photographs blended together, right? Depending on what your idea is. So this is a close-up of a cup of coffee, right? And then it's like a far-away shot of a airplane flying over the clouds. And then all you have to do is take those photos, overlap them, and then blend the smoke into the clouds. And you can get like a totally realistic-looking example. The same thing goes for this one. This one's a little bit stranger, but the same idea. So you have a picture of a camel, right? Like that, see that? Bottom of it is the camel. And then you have a picture of like a mountain pass, like that. You see, so basically what they've done is they've overlaid the 2 pictures in an interesting manner and then kind of blended it all together. And I'm going to show you how to blend like this. You already sort of know how to do it with the face swap, but I'm going to show you some other skills that will help you with it. Okay? So it's all about your idea. It can be very simple as long as you execute it well. Like this is an example as well. Like, so there's this giant zebra, or I guess it's a horse painted like a zebra, next to this tiny little horse, right? These are obviously not realistic. These are, one of them's like a close up and one of them's a far away shot. But then by blending the images together, you can create this strange, sort of unsettled look. It's like a dream, or maybe it's creepy, maybe it's funny. Here's an example of a guy holding pieces of the sky, like puzzle pieces. Here's a little girl opening like the tarp of a circus tent or something, but really it looks like she's peeling up the sky from the horizon, which is a cool idea. So anyway, those are all some basic examples of what it is. Now I want to do a little activity real quick, just verbal, and then just to see if you're following along with me. Okay, so let's pretend this is your idea. You've come up with an idea. You're like, I want to make it look like there's a desert landscape and it's raining keys and there's a bunch of padlocks on the ground. Okay, so if this was my idea, if I had thought about this and thought about it and I came up with this idea, if I wanted to actually assemble this from scratch, what might be something that I would want to look for? I'm going to go find images that I'm going to make into my idea. Would I look up surrealist photograph of keys raining on padlocks? No, of course not. So what might be something that I would want to go look up? Like, what's an element of this that I would want to go find a picture? Feel free to throw it out. Or you could put it in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself.
A desert and like keys too.
That's
like
exactly
different
right.
things.
Yes, you would go look up desert landscape. You'd go find a high-res image of a desert landscape. You'd find the one you like, and then you'd save it to your desktop. Then you'd go look up old-timey keys or something, right? You'd find an image that you like, you'd save it to your desktop. Then you'd go find up storm clouds, right? You are going to go assemble, after you come up with your idea, you then need to go assemble all the different pieces you'll need to create it, okay? So let me show you an example of what I want you to do for the rest of class here, okay? First, I want you to think about what you want to make, right? So let me get off of this real quick. So let's say, well, before you do that, in order to get an idea, what you want to do is you're going to look up the word surrealism. You can look up surrealist photography, right? If you just look up surrealism, you're going to get a lot of painting. So you can look up surrealist photography. When you do that, you're going to see a ton of different strange examples, right? So you're going to see weird stuff, like this hand coming out of a shell, right? Or maybe you're going to look up something like this, like a weird doorway into the clouds, right? So if this is your idea, or if you decided that you want to do something along these lines, or like infinite people going off into the distance, right? If you see that and you're like, oh, I want to recreate that, except I'm going to use my friend or something, or I'm going to use a cool image of somebody I like on the internet, whatever. What you want to do is you want to go find the picture. Like, I'm going to go look for a person in a suit, right? And then you want to find a nice image of it. I want to look for a road leading to the horizon. And then we're going to be doing the assembly. Now, you don't have to just look up surrealist photography if you're trying to figure out a cool example, okay? What you might want to look at instead, or like, so here's some other cool examples. You can try to recreate these ideas. Like, you go look up a face, the moon, and a little person, like a girl reading, right? You can recreate these examples. You could do something really strange like this. But again, you can add an adjective to this. Like, you can look up funny, right? If you add funny to it, you're going to get different search results, right? So I've got like a guy's a candle, or a certain person's brain turning into a candle or whatever, right? So there's all these kind of strange versions of this. You can create something like that if you really work at it. Like, how about this? What might be, if you want to make a cute little banana duck, whatever, I don't know, it's funny. Something along these lines. Like, if you look up a picture of an eyeball, and you look up a picture of like hands cupping something like that, right? From that angle. And then I'll give you the tools to put them back together. So the key here is what I want you to do for the first part of class is I want you to just look up interesting stuff. It doesn't have to be funny. You can look up scary. There's some really creepy, like nightmarish ones. You could look up something along these lines. Maybe you're into horror or something. You know, you could do anything that you'd like. Whatever you can think of that you find interesting, then you're going to attempt to recreate that image using stuff from your own Google searches, right? That's pretty freaky. So we'll get out of that. You look up cool. Let's spend a little time thinking about this. What do I want to make? Then, once you've thought of what you want to make, that one's kind of neat, right? Playing around with size and scale is always a pretty easy and fun way to do this. Find something that's usually small and something that's usually large and just like mix it up in an interesting manner. So like here you have these birds sitting on a log. But anyway, things like this, playing around with size and scale is a fun way to do this project. You don't really have to do that much. You just need a fun idea that you can execute well, okay? So you spend a little time thinking about what you'd like to make, okay? Just spend a little time thinking about it. And then once you've thought about it, once you have an idea like, ooh, doorway leading into another dimension or something, right? Once you've thought about that, then you go to your Google image search and you look up things like open door, open doorway, like that, right? Then I'm going to make sure, here's the key element, everybody pay close attention. When you're looking up the elements of your project, you want to make sure that you go to tools and then change the size right here to large. You only want to look for large images for this project. Okay, so now I found a cool doorway. That one looks interesting. I'm going to right click on that. I probably wouldn't take this because it's got stock photo all written all over it. But you find one that's not stock like that. That one looks pretty cool. Right click on that and then just save it to my desktop. So maybe this doorway is going to lead out to this beautiful area, right? So maybe the foreground of this project is going to be something like, I don't know, field. You can look up things like desktop background in order to get really nice ones. But then I find like a cool picture of a field like that. And then voila, I save that one. And then I'll show you the way to put the door into the field and make it look realistic by changing the colors and blending and stuff like that, right? So you come up with an interesting idea. Just play around looking at stuff, do a little research by looking up surrealism or surrealist photography or strange surrealism or whatever. And then once you do that, that's pretty funny. Then you go find the elements that you're going to need to create that. Like, let's say your idea is that. Pretty rad, right? You're going to go find a picture of someone mowing the lawn and find a close up of someone's beard, right? That's how we're going to put this all together. It's important that your images that you find will interact with one another. So think about that as you're doing it. Okay, so I went to the internet and I collected some images. I've got a particular idea in mind. I've got this idea that I want to make a doorway, sort of like at the end of a dock, and I want it to kind of lead to another dimension. Okay, that's what the goal is. It's going to make it look like I've got this cool, weird doorway and it's leading to another world. Okay, so that's my basic idea. This is the collection of images that I found. Also, I'm going to show you guys how to make creepy little ghost kids, which is going to be funny. Okay, so this is my idea. All right, so what I want to do, I need to think to myself before I start my project, which one of these images is going to be my main photo, like the background, the part of the image that we don't really mess with. If you remember from when we were doing our face mashups, we had one piece, right, that was our main background image, and then we added stuff to that. So in this case, I decided that I want this, that is this dock here, to be my main background. All right, so what I'm going to do here is this. I'm going to go to my Photoshop. Everybody, you can just open up your Photoshop, or in fact, just watch me. You'll see how to do it, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. So I'll go to Open. When I open up Photoshop, I'll go to Open. I'll go find that photograph. I've got it on my desktop. It's this dock image, and I'm going to go ahead and open it up. And when I do, there you go. I've got a nice looking dock. This is the basis of my surrealist artwork, okay? So this is kind of how we started on the last one as well. Instead of like a picture of, I don't know, George Bush or something, now we have our dock, right? This is gonna be the canvas on which I add all of my ideas. You don't wanna open a new file or anything like this. This is all just photo editing. All right, so we start with a base photo. Feel free to jump in if you have any questions, but hopefully you won't. All right, so we start with our base photo. Now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go back up here to go File, Open, and now I'm gonna open another image, like a secondary image, one that I'm going to cut out and add to my base photo. So I'll go to this one that's this little doorway. As I mentioned previously, I want to kind of make like a doorway leading to another dimension, okay? All right, so there you see my two files. When we did the Photoshop mashup thing, the face mashup thing, it was just I cut out a piece here, I drag it over here and blend it in, right? That's essentially what we're gonna be doing for all of this. So watch, here's what I do. This one here stays locked. I'm gonna keep my background locked. I'm gonna keep it here forever, okay? For this project at least. I come over to my other file. When I do this, I wanna just get this doorway, all right? I'm gonna make it look like there's a floating doorway at the end of my dock. So the way to do that, the way you have been taught, is I would unlock my background. But we always want to do that. We always want to unlock the background from any image that we're about to take a chunk out of, okay? And what we learned how to do was we used the lasso tool, right? We did this last project. We would go circle around what we want, like this, blah, 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 blah. We'd go to our move tool, and then we'd take that piece off, okay? But that looks bad. That's not what we want. Well, good news. There are better selection tools for different purposes. So in this case, I've got a very architectural piece that I want to select, right? I want to get it exactly straight up and down. I want to use complete straight lines to get my selection. So the way I would do that is if I click and hold on my lasso tool, and keep in mind that all of these don't apply to your idea, right? I'm going to show you about 5 or 6 different ways to make a selection and 5 or 6 different ways to blend it into the existing environment, okay? So if this doesn't apply to your project, that's totally fine. This is just me unloading a bunch of different options on you. Okay, so if I click and hold on my lasso tool, you'll see there's a couple of other options here. So this one here says polygon lasso tool. The one underneath that says magnetic lasso tool. The one I'm gonna try for this little experiment here is the polygon lasso tool. So the way this works is instead of clicking and dragging it like it's a paintbrush or something, what you do is you click a single time, it'll start a point. And then you see this, and now I'm moving my mouse around like this. I'm just kind of dragging it around. I'm not actually clicking and holding. I've got both of my hands off my mouse. I'm just moving my cursor. Then when I get to a corner, like right up here, I can just click again and it sets that line perfectly straight. Same over here. I can click at the corner and it sets the line. So this is a super useful selection tool. So I'm just going around the corner. I'm clicking like this. Click once, move my mouse. Click once, move my mouse. Click once, move the mouse, etc. So I just click once, move the mouse. And this is just a method of making a selection, okay? So I'll click right there. And then when you get all the way around to the corner, you click once and it completes the selection. And now you can see I've got the little marching ants that we grew accustomed to in that first project. So now I can go to my move tool. I've got a clean selection. Check it out. When I move it now, I've got this clean selection. I can bring this up to my other tab, pull it down into my base image and drop it in. And look at that. I've got a cool doorway sitting on this dock, right? So now, I mean, this still looks like trash, don't get me wrong, but I've got my piece here now, right? So I'm going to take that piece. I'm going to position it how I want. Let's just put it like that. I can make it a little bit larger, a little bit smaller. Boom. I hit enter. Voila, it's set. All right, so that's how you use the polygon lasso tool. It makes a clean selection. Okay. So now what I want to do is I've got that kind of, you know, you're walking down this dock, you go through this doorway, and then my idea here is that through the doorway, there would be some sort of other like universe or something, right? Some other dimension, kind of like Monsters, Inc. style. Like you open the door, you go through and you see something else. Okay, right now it's just garbage. It's just a bunch of weirdness. We can fix that. All right, check this out. What I can do next is this. If I go back to File, Open. See, I'd already thought about the construction of my piece, right? So if I go to File, Open, I can go find, in this case, I want to use this little galaxy image. I found this cool image of a galaxy. It's nice and high res. You see I've opened that now as well. It's got its own tab up here, right? So there's my base piece that I'm doing the work to. That's my actual project. Then I've got the separate tabs of the items that I'm using. Okay, check this out. Right underneath the move tool, see, I want to make it look like there is like a universe through the other side of my doorway. All right, so right underneath the move tool, you'll see this little thing that says rectangular marquee tool. You see that? And if you click and hold on it, you can see a bunch of different marquee tools. What this does is this is very similar to the shape tools in Illustrator. What you can do is you can make a selection that's like a specific rectangle. So in this instance, what I would do is I could just click and drag, open a rectangle like this, right? Let's do it like that. Boom. And now I've got a selection already made. It's pre-made. This is good if you're going to try to take a very specific shape or a large chunk of something and cut it out. So I've got my selection made already. That was very easy. One thing I forgot to do is I forgot to unlock the background. So I'm gonna go ahead and unlock that. So now this is gonna be movable. I go back to my move tool. Remember, you always wanna go back to your move tool. And now when I slice this out, I've got this clean rectangular selection. So I'm gonna bring that over here. I'll bring it right here like so. And now look at that, it's sitting right on top of my door. So you might be thinking to yourself, Mr. Rao, that looks terrible. This is literally the worst Surrealist project I've ever seen. All right, well, check this out. Hit enter and set it. Now, if you're using your thinking cap, you will realize that what I really want is I want this galaxy image here to be behind the door frame. So it'll give the impression that if you were to walk through the door frame, then you would, enter the other dimension. So in order to do that, I'm going to direct your attention down here to my layers. All right, over here on the layers panel, we talked about this as well. In previous projects, whichever layer is on the very top of the layers panel, that's going to be the layer that is in front of your artwork. So what you want to do, very similar to like moving apps around on your phone, is we want to take layer 2 and drag it down below layer 1. So check out my layers panel here. I'll just click in this space over here. You click and you drag it, and you'll see you can position your layers. So when I bring it down behind layer 1, now it's starting to look kind of cool, right? Not great, but it's starting to look a little cool. So I can zoom in here and you can see I walk through the dock, I go through this doorway, and voila, I'm gonna go out into space. But the illusion is kind of ruined because there's a number of reasons. One of the reasons the illusion is ruined is because you can see this hard edge right here on this dock, right? And you can see that it's not exactly through the doorway. Up here, you can see a little bit of that over here as well. It kind of shatters the illusion. So what we can do in this case is we can go grab that eraser that we had been using previously when we were blending our face together. And you can change it to either a fuzzy eraser or a soft eraser, or a hard eraser. So I'll use this hard round edge. And now as long as I have this layer selected, see that? I can come in here and I can erase out parts of that image that I don't want. So I can come down here and erase it out. I'm just kind of taking out pieces of it as I'm going here. But like that still doesn't really look great. It kind of looks like a hard edge on the bottom. So one thing I might want to do instead of using a hard edged eraser is what if I go to the soft edged eraser like this? And then when I come down here, very similar to how we were blending our faces together, if I increase the size of that cursor, I can like softly erase, look at that. And you can see a little bit of the dock coming through, right? And I can just kind of gently do it. And what it does is it almost gives the impression that if you were to walk through that door, there's like some kind of cool, like magical thing happening. And then you would walk out into another world. You see that? That's just me softly erasing that bottom edge. So all I've done here, to recap, is I basically brought in this weird thing here, this picture chunk of this image. And then I brought in a chunk of this image. And then by assembling them in such a manner, what I've got here is I've got this kind of cool illusion happening. Now, a couple of things are happening here that aren't perfect. And that's this. Obviously, one thing you can see is this door, right? You see this door here is like overlapping this hole. It's way in front of the door, so it's like throwing the illusion off badly. All right, let me show you a trick on that, okay? So if I want to make it look like this door here is behind this post, okay, this is going to be some 4D chess for you here, right? We're going to make an illusion that's going to trick our minds. What we want to do is this. I basically want to take a chunk of this door out of the picture, right? I basically want to erase like this corner here of this door. But I want to do it in such a manner that it's exact, like exactly there. So I could try to come through here like this and just take a big chunk out. Now that's not very cool, right? What I really want to do is get it exactly on there. If it's not all the way, it looks kind of crappy. But one thing that we could do in order to do that is this. Over here, you'll see this word that says opacity. You see that right there? We talked about this in Illustrator. Opacity means that the layer is see-through or not see-through. So when I drop the opacity, you see that? You can see through that layer a little bit. So let me zoom in a little bit. When the opacity is down, I can go to my eraser. I can erase out exactly what I don't want from that door. And Control Z is your friend. Remember that. If you mess it up, you can go undo it. So I'm just kind of cleaning this up here a little bit. Boom. All right. So then I think I've got I got the proper amount erased. Then I can come right back over to my opacity and bring it right back up to 100. And now look at that. It's just a little trick. We're tricking our brain to make it seem like that door is behind that post, when in reality, that door is sitting on top of our picture, right? You see that? It's on top of the picture. So this is all about little tricks, little illusions that we can pull. Okay, so this is starting to look kind of cool. It almost looks like that door belongs there, obviously in a weird dreamlike sense. But there's one big thing that's messed up in my opinion, okay? And this is a key element. So right now I've shown you a couple of different ways to select items, a couple of different ways to erase little chunks to make it look like they belong together. But one thing you're gonna run into is you're gonna have a cool idea. I just know you'll have cool ideas. And you're gonna be like, that picture does not match the other one. Like I took this thing and I brought it into this thing and the lighting is so much different that the illusion is completely shattered. You can clearly tell that they don't belong together. So like this white door here isn't really looking like it belongs in this space. So check this out. This is an important thing. So if I select that layer, so layer 1, click on it. I briefly mentioned this in the Photoshop thing when we change in the face mashup where you can change the colors of things. We can do that. We can go up to image adjustment and you can go to like, let's say hue. And you can like in real time, you can adjust it and you can see how it kind of changes. See how around the edges, it kind of changes the look a little bit. So that is kind of cool. That's one useful tool. You can change how bright or dark it is, right? You can do like this to make it, does it belong out here or not, right? Maybe I'll do it like that. Then I hit okay. Then there's another thing you can do is this. Down here on the left side on your toolbar, there's a little thing called, where'd it go? There you are. The dodge tool or the burn tool. Now these are photography terms. Dodging and burning. Dodging will make something look darker. Excuse me, other way around. Dodging will make something look lighter. Burning will make something look darker. So check it out. If I take my dodge tool, move it over to my doorway here, and I start to mark on it, so that when I dodge it, you see what it does there? It'll lighten the pixels. But it does it in such a manner that it looks like it's supposed to be light, right? So it's not like I'm painting or anything. It's just lightening the pixels. And then conversely, if I go to the burn tool, what I can do is I can come in and I can darken the pixel. You see how it's darkening it? It's actually darkening it in a manner that makes it seem like it fits, right? So it kind of makes it look like it belongs in this space. So what I just did there is just really subtly added a little shadow, added a little lightness. So I made it kind of look like the light is coming from the galaxy out the door. And I made it look like the shadow is out here on the outer part. So by doing that, you can kind of make it look like your piece matches the shading or whatever, or the highlights of the other piece. So playing around with that and playing around with all these image adjustments. So you select a layer, go to image adjustments. You could come up to, I don't know, vibrance, for instance. By doing that, see how every time you mess with something, it'll play around with the image in real time, as long as you have preview selected. Okay. So quite frankly, that could be a project that I just did right there. I talked you through it in about 15 minutes. You could do something very similar to that, and then you'd be done. Now, but you might be saying to yourself, well, my idea wasn't making a door going to another galaxy. I want to make it look like there's a ghost or something in the forest. Okay, I don't know. I'm just randomly throwing stuff out. All right, check this out. I'm going to add a couple more things to this to make it that much cooler. All right, so let's say you want a creepy kid in your picture or a creepy ghost. We're going to go to File, Open. I'm also about to show you a really important selection tool that's really good to have. I go to File, Open. I'm going to go find my weird picture of these old-timey kids. When I do that, there it is. See that? Creepy enough. Kind of cute. I'm going to go to Unlock My Background. Now, here is a selection tool that I have not talked about yet. This is probably the best selection tool. This is a tool that will go out and seek out all the different pixels that you want. It's really kind of almost like magic. If I click on my magic wand tool, right? Or actually, you'll see the quick selection tool. It'll look like a paintbrush, and it'll have a little oval next to the paintbrush. The way this works is like this. It works almost exactly like paintbrush. So if I want to select this little dude here, all right, this little guy, all I have to do, you'll notice that I have up at the top here on my settings, there's a little plus, a little minus, and then another thing. So as long as it's on plus, check this out, I can come in here and click and hold, and my selection, the program knows what I'm trying to select. It will automatically go seek out the edge of that particular item. So I can click and drag, and you see how it goes, it just pushes naturally out. You start in the center, and it will just push out, and it will select all of the pixels that are that item. Now, there are going to be some instances where it runs on you like that. You see how it just kind of jumped? Because the color difference between this boy's tights, I guess, and the background are really close, so it can't quite tell the difference. So in that case, you just go right up here to this minus, and you can just sort of remove what you don't want. It's a little game of like going back and forth between the minus and the plus. Now, another thing you can do, of course, is you can just erase away what you don't want. So look at that. I got little dude there. See him? Nice and selected. That was very easy. I just clicked and drug, and it automatically sought out the edge of the image that I was trying to get. Look at that. See how he's like separated? Pretty cool little selection trick. Now I can take this guy. I'll bring him over here and drop him in. Okay, so this doesn't quite fit with my theme earlier. Maybe it does. Maybe he's leading us off into another dimension. Ooh. All right, check it out. I got little dude in there. Make him a little smaller. He's freaking me out. He's like, come play with us. Okay, look at that. Boom. Now I've got him in there, and you can see it was a pretty good selection, but there's a little bit of weirdness on the edges. You can do things like this. I could come in with my eraser. The eraser is kind of a key element to this. It really helps you blend things in and stuff. So I can take my eraser, go to make sure that layer is selected. There we go. Come on. There we go. And then I can come in and I can like clean up some of the edges that I didn't mean to select. So like I don't need that background. You see, I'm just kind of taking away from what my selection. It wasn't a perfect selection. You can also smooth out the edges and stuff. Okay, but you're like, what's the deal? Who cares? It's like an old-timey photo of a kid that's sitting in front of a door, right? All right, well, check this out. Let's get weird and creepy. So if I select on that layer 3, which is that little child, and over here on the opacity thing, remember that when I was playing around with the door a moment ago? If I drop the opacity and make him see-through, now we've got like a creepy ghost child. Right, now that can apply to anything. It doesn't have to just be a child, but anyway. So then from here, check this out. I'll show you another little extra trick. You might be like, Mr. Rao, this is 1,000 tricks. Well, good news, this is going to be recorded. You can pause this. You can be like, oh yeah, I want to do that thing where he made that kid into a ghost. And then you can just reference this in a minute. Watch, I'll take my eraser, my soft edge eraser. I'll kind of vanish out some of his side of him like this, right? Clean up the edge. Ooh. Spooky. Right, so there you go. Now watch this little thing. There's this other thing called the smudge tool. What the smudge tool will do, it's another good way to blend layers on top of other layers. It'll kind of like push the pixels, and it'll make it look like it's smearing the pixels against the background. So if I do that, if I go to my smudge tool and click on the interior of this child here and click away, and look at that. It can kind of make it look like he's blowing away in the dust or something. Now that is getting creepy. What is it about old pictures that are automatically creepy? I'm sure this kid was perfectly nice. All right, check it out. Look at that creepy ghost boy. Pretty solid. So that was just playing around with opacity, using that quick selection to make a clean selection of an irregular shape. And then I smudged him out a little bit to make it look like he's a ghost child. All right, I have one more item that I want to show you, and then I'm going to leave it up to you guys to just begin your work. You can start any way you'd like, however you want. And if you discover some method that I have not showed you, that's also fine. The key element here, just before I do this last thing, is I want you to reiterate. You need to decide which of your photos that you've used is going to be the base on which you're going to do all of the editing. Right? You need to have a background that you sort of like don't mess with. Although I'm about to mess with it, so I'm going to show you one thing. But you need to have a background on which you are creating your work. Then you add to that background. You play around with the lighting, you play around with the blending, and you can make anything that you want. Okay, the final thing that I want to show you is this. What if I want to make it look like, what do I want to make it look like this background here, like the sky back here is a different color, like it's like a random thing. Like if I want to make it look like, I don't know, there's space or something happening back there. Okay, check it out. I've got another little method. If I go up here and I go to File, Open, I have this sun image, right? Open this. Check it out. Pretty neat. What I can do is this. I've got this fun idea that I want to take this sun. I can use the quick selection tool and it'll make a cool selection like this. Or instead of doing that, I can use the elliptical marquee tool. What that'll do is it'll make, if I hold shift, it'll make a circle, right? So a circular selection like this. I can move it around a little bit and get it nice and centered on there. All right, now what I have is this cool sun piece. So I'm gonna take this giant sun here. I'm gonna move it over to my work that I was working on. I'm gonna position it in the background back here. And you might be like, that's weird, who cares about that? All right, check this out. I'll drop the opacity. And then I can come over here and do the similar thing that I did with my dock, which is I can take my eraser. I'll use the hard edged eraser. I can come right here and then I can erase away what I don't want. And when I do that, I'm going to keep it right up against the edge of the mountain there, right against the horizon. See, so notice I'm not doing anything to the base image. I'm just playing around with the sun picture, and I'm just erasing away what I don't want. Like that. Then I build the opacity back up over here, and voila, it's got this giant sun setting in the background. Now this is looking very strange, and that's okay. I can also do this. I can take this with my eraser. I can use a soft edge eraser. Come on. I can use a soft edge eraser and I can just clean up the edge so it's not so stark. Kind of looks like a planet back there. Something weird's happening on the horizon. And then the final thing is this. On the background, I can go to my quick selection tool and I can select, and look how it's only selecting the sky. See that? I just selected out the sky. And then what I can do with that is this. I can take that selection and I can go to image adjustments, maybe like color balance or something. And when I do that, I can change the color of that area that has been selected. So I can make it look really weird. Do that. Image adjustments. There's other ones as well. If I go to hue, otherworldly. Voila. Okay, look at that weird image that I just made. So what I've got here is a bunch of different methods. What I just showed you is like just a whole bunch of different methods to select, to edit, to blend, to erase, to make your image look strange and dreamlike. All right. You can take any of these techniques and you can apply them to whatever your idea is. If your idea is that you want to make it, look like there's an eyeball, there's a galaxy in an eyeball or something, like we showed you that, you would just take a chunk of galaxy, overlay it over the eyeball, blend it out. There's all kinds of different things that you can do. So yeah, that concludes the tutorial on how to do Surrealist editing.